I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I have to do it. Spoiler-free movie review, Joker, Folie à Deux. I'm like so... I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. That is how I feel about this movie. And going back to 2019 Joker was the first movie ever in the history of me reviewing movies in this capacity that I rated a 5 out of 5. There was nothing I would change about that movie. I feel like it captured a moment in time. There was so much controversy surrounding the release of that movie. It went on to be a mega hit. Wasn't supposed to. And for the longest time, I wouldn't even go back and watch Joker. I think it was maybe 2021, maybe 2022 that I rewatched it for the first time because I didn't want to change how I felt about it. And even going into that film, Todd Phillips, the director, said, I have no plans for a sequel. He didn't want to do it. He thought Joker was a standalone one-movie deal. And then it went on to make $1 billion at the box office. And what happens when a movie makes $1 billion at the box office? Studio comes and knocking saying, you sure you don't want to rethink that? Joaquin Phoenix made $20 million on that first movie. He won an Oscar. Of course there's going to be a demand to make a second one. And you throw enough money into somebody's face, put it right in their lap, stuff it right in their pockets. Of course they're going to do another one. So then this other story came out after he said no plans for a sequel that, well, at the end of that one, Joaquin Phoenix said he wasn't ready to depart from the character, and that Todd Phillips said that he would do another one if Joaquin Phoenix said that I'm ready to do it again, and that they thought there was another story. Joaquin Phoenix apparently had some kind of dream where Joker was singing and dancing, so they thought, what if we do a Broadway adaptation to a sequel? And when this movie got announced back in 2022, I was excited. Even though I thought it didn't need a sequel, I thought, well, if they're going to make a sequel, that means they had to have stumbled on a story that was great. And then when they said that Joker 2 is going to be a musical, I thought, that sounds terrible. I've said on this podcast that I don't like musicals. There are a handful here and there that get me every now and then. But I think as a genre, people, Americans, moviegoers, just don't really like musicals because they are very hokey and cheesy. And Joker 2 is what is described as a jukebox musical, which I didn't really know that term going into this movie, but instead of having original songs made for this movie, they just randomly burst out into well-known songs, not all of them that I know. And when I heard it was going to be a musical, I thought, oh, really? They're going to depart so much from what made the first one great. And that is my theory on this movie. Because I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. There were parts of it I enjoyed. The little peaks that we had to Joker 1, I enjoyed. But as a whole, I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it's necessary. And when I heard it was going to be a musical, I thought, well, it has to play into the madness of Arthur Fleck. And that is kind of what happened in this movie. Every time things get a little bit too intense, he goes into song, he goes into this fantasy land, which is what the first movie did. But it did it more subtly, because in the first one, you kind of question what is reality and what is going on in Arthur's mind, because he is deranged, he is crazy, he is a lunatic. This one pushed that a little bit further, and it really turned it into kind of a playground where nothing really mattered, wasn't based in any kind of reality, really wasn't based in any kind of Gotham. So I think what happened and why this movie is performing so terribly and why I left feeling so disappointed is that Todd Phillips, to do a sequel, wanted to do something completely different from the first one. Like any artist, like, okay, I don't want to repeat myself. I also want to give audiences something new, which I think the reason most people hate this movie isn't the reason I hate this movie. A lot of people have a problem with the singing. A lot of people have a problem with the overall outcome of the movie. What I feel was just completely a slap in the face to me as a DC fan, to me as a Joker fan, is I don't feel like this story carried any kind of the qualities that a Joker in the movies or in the comic books has ever carried. It is such a departure that it doesn't feel like Joker whatsoever. It feels more like this movie should have just been called Arthur Fleck. Like, it has nothing to do with the character of Joker. It is just using that banner and sprinkling in little details here to attach it to some kind of DC world. Harvey Dent is in here for no reason whatsoever. Harley Quinn, I feel they just gave that character the name of Harley Quinn, gave her a little bit of backstory like she had in the comics. Outside of that, that character is useless in this movie. And my other big problem was they sold this movie in the trailer, in the promotional materials, as a completely different movie. Even in the description of it, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, of what this movie is about, it's supposed to be about him finding Harley Quinn in Arkham Asylum. And the trailer makes it look out to be like it is their rise to power, them taking on the world, them dealing with what the outcome was of Joker 1 and going on this big adventure. There's none of that. There's no adventure in this movie. There's no action. It is a courtroom drama, Broadway musical, slightly reminiscent of a comic book movie, but not really. It is a huge swing from director Todd Phillips to do something really creative. That is what it is. And I can kind of respect that, because as somebody who talks about on this podcast how I just want something different, I want something unique. I don't want to go into a DC movie and have the same formula that has not worked time and time again. And I think Todd Phillips here did that. A really big creative swing. But the problem is he struck out, because at no moment in this movie did it ever get into a rhythm, did it ever find its groove. And even when I thought it found its groove, where something actually started happening, I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere here. There's going to be a complete shift change, and it's going to completely transform into a different movie. As soon as that moment happens in the movie, poof, momentum is gone. It is just like, oh, well, it was fun for me to imagine that, but the movie just completely took a nosedive going into that third act and closing it out. It kind of tarnishes, I hate to say this, it tarnishes what happened in the first one, because again, I think Joker 1 is a perfect movie. Nothing I would change. For this one, I would change everything about it, and I don't want this movie to exist. I just don't. Because I think it's going to continue that representation of DC movies historically being bad. And I don't even want to put this movie in the same category of an Aquaman 2, of The Flash. I don't think it's bad in that sense, that it's terrible writing or terrible direction. I think what makes this one unenjoyable is that it's so out there and such a departure from the first one. It is like they completely changed the formula. If you went to a restaurant and had a meal that was so good, the best meal of your life, and then you came back and ordered that same meal and they changed all the ingredients, and it's not even the same dish anymore. That's what happened here. So I came here looking for a double stuffed crust pepperoni pizza, and I got chicken pot pie with lentils. Like, what is happening here? And for somebody who likes chicken pot pie with lentils, maybe enjoying this movie, but for somebody who wanted that pizza, you're like, what? This isn't what I ordered. And I also think Todd Phillips maybe took all the criticism of Joker 1 and thought, well, this is what people didn't like about this movie, so let me completely change it on the sequel. People thought the first one was too dark, so let me liven it up with some musical numbers. I didn't completely hate all of the musical numbers. I think you needed one. I think that would have got the point across of what is going on in Joker's mind, how he and Harley Quinn interact with each other. I think you needed one moment. There were multiple moments throughout the entire movie, maybe 10 moments at least, where they burst into songs, and it feels cringeworthy to see Joker doing this. Because the moments he did this in Joker 1, where you don't know if it's reality or fantasy, it had a different tone. It was more intense and more of like, oh, what is exactly going on here? Here it was very clear. You have Lady Gaga just belting her brains out, and it just didn't fit. And none of those musical moments had any impact on the movie, any impact on the story, for which there was very little story. It is Arthur Fleck dealing with the fallout of the events that happened in the first one. He is on trial. People want him to fry for this. He has caused an uprise that is just bubbling underneath in Gotham. And now he meets Harley Quinn, who is now, quote unquote, the love of his life. And he feels not alone anymore. And that is really all the story. So I feel like there wasn't enough here to carry on a 2-hour plus movie, where if they would have just made it more like one, given us the exact same thing, could have been a 90-minute movie, cut all the musicals, add some more substance to the story. But I don't think that would have been fulfilling to Joaquin Phoenix or to Todd Phillips. So I think they decided to make this thing that is just not resonating with anybody. So I think most audiences are leaving saying, what was that? So I don't regret going to see it. I started to see some of the uproar and some of the review bombing come out early on, but I don't really let that change my perspective on wanting to see a movie. Sometimes I feel that once one person says something negative, it is so much easier for a lot of people to team up on something negative. But if you enjoyed Joker 1, I still would not tell you not to see Joker 2, because I love Joker 1. And I still feel like I got something out of experiencing this, because you almost have to see it and decide for yourself. And then, like me, try to start erasing this movie from your memory, because I don't think it was meant to be made. I think with the first one being so successful, we are just in that state of media right now where if something has so much success, they're going to try it again. But this just didn't work. It was a big swing and a big miss. For Joker Folie, they put the rating in the title. Ugh, it is 2 out of 5 defense attorneys. It is 2 out of 5. You can just hear it in my voice how sad I am to do this review. I did not think I would be sitting here at this point of the year reviewing Joker and giving it anything less than a 4. Because even when that trailer dropped and the cinematography, all those still shots look amazing. This movie still looks good. It's still expensive, $200+ million that it cost to make. So visually, it is still there. The performances, the acting, I would say is still there. It is still quality. It is just them doing something that you just don't really care about. And it just never hooks you in. So not in the same way that Aquaman 2 is so cringe to watch because there's cheesy lines, bad CGI, horrendous acting. That movie is flat with action. This is just bad because it doesn't even really feel like a movie. It feels very abstract. It feels like there's a lot of metaphor in it, which there is. A lot about the human condition, a lot about how we treat criminals, a lot about how people follow people for doing ridiculous and crazy and criminal acts. So there is that messaging in this movie, but you slapped a bunch of crap on it that nobody really sees that. So again, for Joker Folie, I give it 2 out of 5 frowny faces.